this is going to be an updated guide to making frezon on a retort on the frontier using more advanced atmos stuff. The design is more standardized, less interesting than the old one, but it is significantly more efficient, so figured I'd put this out there and link people to it instead of the old one. So to start with, I've redesigned this external pipe setup that the retort comes with. So normally, you mine your gas down here in the cockpit. You come in here, and then it comes up here. And then normally it comes with 4 filters. I've set it up so that it comes with a lot more. So it just goes through. We get oxygen, plasma, tritium. I'm keeping my carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide. You can optionally get rid of them. And then helium. And the last thing is nitrogen. And we don't need a lot of nitrogen, so rather than just dumping it all into the holding chamber, we only get a little bit into this pipe. And this inlet pressure regulator is set to 3,500 kilopascal. So that if we have too much nitrogen, then it just dumps it into waste. But if we don't have enough nitrogen, we do end up mining it and we'll deal with it in this little tile right there. But these 6 filters up here, they just go into this single pipe that gets pushed through there, and then we've got an injector in the top corner. All right, we're going to be building 4-filter frezon first. Technically you could build your burn chamber first, it really doesn't matter. But to do that, we're going to need, give me the regular panel. We're going to do 4 filters, and you should place these first. It has to do with device ordering reasons, but place your filters first. And then mixer. Let's do mixer this way. To reverse the direction. And we're going to have a manifold here. And we'll do our manifold both spots there. We shouldn't need a manifold for that one. Yeah, this will work. So we'll build those. Build a single pipe here so that it connects these 2 manifolds. And then we're going to do just regular old pipes here with a sensor. Which you don't need the sensor. You could just do a regular pipe, but having a sensor is fun because it lets you look at what's going on inside an air alarm without having to actually run in here with a gas analyzer. So I like having the sensor on my frezon. So this one is going to be this first filter. If you've seen the other video, obviously this first filter is going to be for nitrogen. The second filter is going to be for our tritium. And the third filter is going to be for our oxygen. Now this pipe here is where our nitrogen's coming in, so we have to connect that to our nitrogen manifold down here. So we'll get some pipes going. And we'll make this a T-junction in case we need more nitrogen for other stuff. But otherwise, we can just connect it like this, real nice. And we'll go ahead and color our pipes now. So we got nitrogen here, here, that one, that one, that one. This one's going to be our tritium. Actually, let's make this our oxygen instead. I have an idea of how I want to do tritium. And then this one's going to be our tritium. And this last one is going to be for our frezon. And everything else, we can just inject straight back into the chamber, because it's going to be our nitrous oxide. And this is going to be our, we'll make this our mix. Then our tritium needs to be connected too, so we'll get pipe here and here. Actually, thinking about it, let's flip this around. So we don't need this either of these. I'll just put them in the corner. So we've got oxygen mixing with tritium here, so the side port will be our oxygen, and that's going to be 88.88 set, and that makes your primary port 11, so 1 tritium for every 8 oxygen. Max it out, turn it on. And then for this one, we want, and technically 10% nitrogen isn't correct, it should be slightly less, but it's good enough, so we max this out, turn it on. And this will be our frezon production line. Is there anything else that needs to be done here for now? I don't think so. In the future, once we set this up, this frezon will go to a separate holding tank, which we'll use for other stuff. And then this oxygen and tritium will have connections to be able to scrub oxygen and tritium out of the air into those pipes. So we'll see that later, but for now, this is all we need to set up. I'm just setting this up first to get our placement done, because next we're building our burn chamber, which will take a little bit more space and is less happy to fit anywhere. So having this down first can be nice, so that you have you know what room you're working with, rather than if you build your burn chamber first, then you have to build this around it, which can be annoying. All right, for our burn chamber, I'm going to be constructing it against this wall here. My camera's just rotated, so whatever you need to do to get oriented, I'm just going to be building it here. Let's build it one over to the left. So we're building it here. Obviously, don't place the last reinforced plasma, or else you'll be blocking yourself out. And again, technically you don't need to use reinforced plasma, just use regular reinforced glass, but if you have the plasma, it costs nothing to make your windows a little bit stronger, which, if you've never had an accident, then I guess that's fine. But as someone who plays a lot myself, I have accidentally fired a PKA into my burn chamber, so that's a great way to accidentally break your glass. So I definitely recommend at least using reinforced glass, if not plasma or uranium. Anyway, so this is going to be our burn chamber, so we got to get our injector, which will be used for plasma, and then we got to get a passive vent, which we'll be using for oxygen. And last thing, we got a scrubber, which we'll be using to pull tritium out. And we'll get a filter on this, so that the only thing we're pulling out is tritium, which then we will be routing up and outside real quick. But if you watch the other build, you've seen this before. It's a very common setup. And then this other stuff is going to be waste gas, so we could inject it into the room, but there's a chance that there's going to be very hot water vapor in there. So generally it's better to just vent this into space. So we'll get, for this we'll need a scrub here. We'll need a scrubber. This will be valve, pump, scrubber there. Like this. And then we're going to need some air alarms. Need one to control what gases these scrubbers are pulling out. Oh, we need wires first, don't we? And then I'm going to have a second one to control whether or not we're injecting plasma. Get these two on this one. All right, this one is 5C DC. Disable it. Turn everything off but oxygen. Set it to wide net, turn off auto mode. And the second one is going to be for scrubbing plasma. And sensors, we're going to disable everything so that this air alarm doesn't beep at us, because we do not care what the status of our hold is. You can use this for other stuff, like you can have this so that you get a warning if you ever run low on any gas. Like you can have this so that you get a warning if the oxygen threshold is below like 10%, so that tells you you need to go mining for more oxygen. You can have the warning if you run out of plasma, that kind of stuff, but generally I just prefer to completely disable it. Yeah, sure. I think in the other video I mentioned that it's usually a good idea to radiate your tritium before you store it, because it is dangerous to have hot tritium, but in this case, we really don't mind. There's going to be so much gas in here that the hot tritium is going to mix with it without burning. So we can get tritium. I mean, still, technically, you should be radiating it, but for the condensedness of the setup, I'm going to not. And now that I've said that, since this is a guide for new people, I am changing that statement immediately. So I am going to put this through a radiator before injecting it back in. So if we do pipe here, this will be going outside. We'll just put pipes. Do a pump. And I'm going to give myself a quick remote signaler. These are handy if you ever need to go out through these blast doors. And I'm going to need an oxygen or a nitrogen for this as well. So we do a hollow fan underneath this. We link this blast door to our remote signaler, and now we can go out here. So now we have a radiator, another one. Then we'll pump out of the radiator. Let's color these as, that's not the coloring tool, this is as tritium. And we can close this blast door back up. And we're going to get a coloring tool back out. Give me this for our plasma. And this is going to be our oxygen. And underneath these, we're going to be building some radiators. I'm going to color these We'll go cyan, because that's a nice cool color. This is going to be how we're cooling down our burn chamber. And then the last thing we're going to need is a igniter in here. And then we're going to need to link this scrubber to this air alarm. So we're going to be setting, actually pressure's wrong, there we go, temperature, warning above 650, and then gases, plasma warning above 1.5%, nothing, anything else. And then finally, we can close this up. So if we go right there. And then this scrubber also needs to be set up to be wide net for tritium, or really everything but oxygen and plasma. And auto mode's off, so we can enable this, and that'll start sucking all the nitrogen out of that pipe. Alright, we'll set this to around 150 to start with. We'll need to crank it up eventually, but for now it's fine. And then this one can be set to 20. Then we need to link this last signal valve. So if we hit link here with this one is controlling our plasma. So if we get a warning, we want it to close, but under normal conditions it can be open. Now we have the burn chamber set up. So next we're going to be building our cooling. For cooling, we'll need to be doing that outside. So we're off the side. I've added some more rods to the structure. You can do this however you want. You can add more off the sides to make your ship look pretty. But essentially, we're going to be doing a radiator snake with here and here, and we'll need a signal valve. Technically, you don't need the signal valve, but I like having it. And then otherwise, we're just going to be a bunch of radiators going in a nice long line up and down the sides. That will not be a radiator. There and there, there and there. Won't let me build that one. It's annoying. How about a regular old pipe then? There you go. Then we'll need a pipe going underneath both of these walls. And we'll need this here. And we'll need a pump. This is how we'll add gas to this loop. And then we can go back inside, so let's do... Actually, we are going to need a sensor inside our burn chamber, so that should be... let's disconnect it from that link, and instead we'll link it to this one. We want it to toggle. And place a hollow fan. Still got some charge left. And we'll need an air sensor in here as well, which I forgot to build earlier. Put it there. Must be anchored. And I don't have engineering goggles. So I'll give myself those so I don't blind myself doing this. Clear out of that, and then we'll need to get that one on there. Close that up, and then we can head back inside. We'll need another air alarm. Oops, that's the spawning panel. Then we can add our sensor to this one. This one we have set to only give us warnings above 650. Everything else will be off. And when... oh, I forgot to disconnect this. Whatever. Alright, so when... yeah, when this receives... when that burn chamber gets hot, now this will emit a warning, so we need to do... link this. And go back outside. And connect that to this signal valve here. So when there's a warning, we open, but under normal conditions, we stay closed. Then we turn on all of these filters with no settings. If you haven't seen the other video, the reason we use filters is that they are like volumetric pumps, which are good in this situation because there's not a lot of volume they're working with, but they are slightly stronger than volumetric pumps because they move 1,000 liters per tick instead of only 200. So you can use volumetric pumps instead of these, but just use filters. They are nicer. And then to fill this, we're going to need a plasma canister. You can either create one of these yourself or go find it on a wreck. They're not that uncommon, but you just need to fill this up with some kind of gas. And so we're going to turn this on and check. This fills up. Oh, there's no power out here, is there? Okay, let's get power going then. We need LV going. Put it here. That's easy to find. Ah. Give me some more LV cable coils, and I just threw that away. So that should be right here. So if we bring this wire out, now this should be powered. Yep. So if we analyze this spot here, turn this on, we should see some cold plasma. Yep. We're going to go till this hits about 1,000, or about a megapascal. That's the number I like to stop at, but you can use more or less. And it's always easy to adjust it later, because if you need to pull some gases out of the system, then you can use these filters. So rather than setting them to none, you can set them to plasma, and that'll pull plasma out of the situation. But we'll add a little bit more. That should be good. Let's unlink this blast door. Which one did I use? Nope. This one? Yeah. Okay. And instead, we'll need to link this to the igniter. Go outside, close up, and then we can unlink this from the blast door. So now this remote signaler is only linked up to that igniter. That was loud. Alright, so at this point we can come over here and turn on our scrubbers. We should see oxygen filling up this pipe, but you got some other gases in there. If we turn this on, and then there's no plasma in here, we can turn this on as well. And those waste gases will come out of this pipe here and exit. And actually, let's get this. Now that I've said that, I realize I didn't set up the waste. So we'll hook that up around the side. That's still a spawning panel. We'll need the construction pipe. And we're just going to be venting this stuff to space. And we'll color it waste so that it's obvious what's going on. And go back outside. And it should be underneath this, yep. So we got our construction, and then we just do a passive vent. So we can see all that nitrogen that we had in the burn chamber going out. And at this point, since we just turned on those two scrubbers, this chamber is like active at this point, so it's a good idea to link these up to door bolt, so we don't have any accidents. So we've basically pulled all the oxygen out of the air, and it's going into this burn chamber. Once we get plasma, we'll be able to ignite it, and that'll bring our tritium over to here. And then once it gets hot enough, the plasma will shut off so that it'll stop burning, and the coolant will start flowing through these pipes, which I believe it'll flow from left to right in this case, or if you're in the default orientation, from top to bottom. And that'll cool down the burn chamber and let it reignite over and over. All right, one thing I saw recently that I thought was really cool was using disposals as a way in and out of your gas tank, which means that you don't have to open these doors anymore. So I'm going to quickly show how to set something like that up. So we'll need a disposal trunk and a disposal unit. Which actually, we can just run it underneath that wall, can't we? So we'll rotate that real quick. We'll need steel. There's that, and then we'll need to deconstruct the wall, which is easy enough. We'll need a disposal pipe segment underneath. You can't build disposals underneath walls, which is why you have to deconstruct them, which sucks, but it is what it is. And we'll need a solid wall back there. And then we'll have our disposal trunk here, and another disposal unit on top of it. And so now you don't have to use that door anymore, so we can go in there. Flush. This will bring us in and out without ever having to open this door. So from now on, we can just say this door is permanently welded shut. At this point, I think I'm going to connect up these ports here. So we'll need a way to get oxygen into that. So we'll set up another scrubber. Let's put it, actually, let's do tritium first. So we're going to put a scrubber here with a pump. And we'll just pipe it back and forth. Color this tritium. And we will need to do the list, add it to here. This one is going to be for our tritium. Wide net. And we should disable its warning so that it doesn't yell at us all the time. And then we'll set this to like 100-ish. That's 1,000, not 100. So now as we get tritium, it'll go into this pipe. It picked up a little bit of nitrous oxide and carbon dioxide since we were breathing in here, but that's fine. It'll clear out soon. And then we'll need a way to get oxygen into there. I just typed oxygen in the construction panel. That's not going to work. We're going to need a scrubber, a pump. That'll work. So we'll put a scrubber underneath this disposal chute that we just built. And then we'll get a pump. And a pipe. We're going to need a manifold, aren't we, to get underneath that. So we'll need a manifold here. Actually, we can do a manifold underneath this wall. Let's keep everything in view. So we'll need the manifold to be... And we'll put it under the wall. It's fine. So we'll have our pipe going into that manifold. So if we construct all three of these, we'll have oxygen running into the manifold underneath this wall here. And then we can have oxygen come through to here. We'll color these oxygen blue. And same as before, we'll need to add this scrubber that we just made to the air alarm. And at this point, the only gas in here is nitrogen, and we don't want nitrogen in here, so we're going to need to take our fire axe, which I've left outside, haven't I? Good demonstration of the disposal unit. Which is why that messes my camera a lot. Since the only gas in here is nitrogen, and we don't want nitrogen in here, we can just rip up a floor tile to space it all. Now, yep, seems good. We'll close this up. And we'll set this to 800 or so. And let's see. Okay, so next thing we need, this network of pipes holds our nitrogen. And it will need a freezer, which I have accidentally left outside, so I need to go get those, which means unwelding the store that I just welded. can't take a freezer through disposal. Well, you can take the circuitry through the disposal, but I'm not going to rebuild them. So we're going to need these freezers. Bring them in one at a time. Come on. Okay, so if you ever have a machine that gets stuck on a door like this, what you can do is anchor it and unanchor it to get it realigned with the grid so that it passes through easily. And what we're going to do with these is we're going to hook them up to different pipes. These can just fit on top of other stuff. So it covers up what we previously built, so harder to see stuff, but what we can do is set this to secondary, just this one to the secondary. When we anchor these, they should connect to this manifold here, and then this one will also adjust to secondary. When we anchor it, it'll connect to this manifold here, and we'll be using these to cool down our stuff to 73 Kelvin once we have it growing. And then the last thing we should need is this frezon is still not connected to a storage tank. You can either have your storage inside this area, but I find it more fun to put it out there because it's in front of everyone else and they can see, which it's fun to show off that you're making frezon to other people. To do that, let's do, we'll flip this actually, which when you flip something, it removes all its settings and colors, so you'll have to rebuild it, and then we'll do frezon. Then underneath this wall, we'll need a manifold. So we should be able to build it right there. And this will be like that. And we can re-weld this door shut so we don't accidentally open it. And that manifold is underneath this wall here, so we'll just do a... yeah, let's build it here. Do a directional reinforced plasma window. There and there. There and there. This will be a fun place to store all of our frezon. You can also put your frezon right here, but... actually, now that I've said that, that's actually what I'm going to do. Put it right in the middle. You're going to want a place to inject frezon. And a way to get it out with a scrubber. Place that there, place that there. Get this on here. Then we're going to need one more air alarm for the scrubber. Which for now we're just going to turn off wide net, and we're going to be pulling everything out. Turn off auto mode, sensors off. And we can build this out. Which again technically you can just use regular glass, but if you use regular glass, eventually you're going to have a pKa shot come through this door and hit it, and then you'll leak all your frezon and be sad. So just use some reinforced glass. It doesn't cost that much. Before I close this off, I'm going to color it as frezon, which I should be able to do. And then same thing as before, if you wanted a way in and out of this chamber easily, you could build another disposal setup back and forth between here, but I'm not going to. I will do this. Then we'll need a... That's the spawning panel, not construction. We'll need a manifold here and pipe. So our frezon filter with our manifold under the walls right there. Come on. If we just build this and paint it. It's not going to let me pry. Come on. Let me paint my... Wow, it's not going to let me pry. Okay, well, we don't get to paint that one. That's fine. We'll just have the T-ray off so no one can see. And then underneath this one, we have some gases that we might not actually want because we're about to eject this. So we'll do like this. This will connect it to our sail point, which is up here. But then we're also going to have a valve. Which we can use to get rid of the gases that we don't want in case anything trash gets in there, which right now it's full of oxygen and nitrogen. I'm going to just, like, you could either space that or you could use this filter to pull everything out. Since I know it's just oxygen and nitrogen, I'm going to have an injector. But you could also put this into your loop over there. So if we go to our scrubbers and turn this on, we should see it pull out all the oxygen and nitrogen from that air tile. Obviously, if you have other gases in here, you won't want to use an injector. But since I know it's safe, I'm just going to have the injector there. And once it's done, I can rip it out. Yeah. So if we go... Give me these back. And now we're all set up. So at this point, we'll be able to make frezon and tritium easily. It's all good to go. I'll demonstrate that. I made a little mining platform out here with a mixed plasma deposit as well as a oxygen deposit, which are the two kinds of deposits that you really like to see. There are other deposits that are still worth mining, but the big mix and the enormous oxygen are the two good ones, I think. And now we're getting oxygen and plasma in there, so we'll hop inside. You can see that we're getting a bunch of good gases that we like to see. We still have a little bit of nitrogen in the air, but that's fine. We're getting oxygen in this pipe, which is cooling down. We've got nitrogen in this pipe, which is cooling down. Got plasma in this pipe. We've got oxygen in there. So at this point, we are good to go and ignite. We should see this burn. And then once it gets above 650 Kelvin, we should see the coolant start and flow through here and cool it back down. cooled it down way too much, but also slightly too slow. So that tells us that we don't have enough mass in this burn chamber, so it's heating up too quickly. So we'll need to up this up to like 650. And we'll need to reignite it again. Once it gets past 650, it should start cooling. Looks like we cooled down way too much once again, so that means we can up the pressure in here. We'll say like 1,000. Looks like we might need a little bit more plasma in here as well, so we'll up this to like 50. Once it passes 650, should get the coolant moving through. So it's not super stable yet because our coolant that's outside is still very cold. As this keeps going, it should warm up, but basically you just adjust the pressure in this pipe and this pipe. And if we go outside, we'll see that in a moment. But now we should have some tritium coming in here. It's nice and cold. We've got our oxygen nice and cold. We've got our nitrogen fairly cold. So we just need to adjust these. This is set up. This is set up. All right, so a little bit later, our burn chamber is now stable, and as you can see by the air around us, we have produced a decent chunk of tritium. And so all that's left is to make sure that we're actually producing frezon, which oh no. Okay, so this pump needs to be on, but that's still not filling this pipe. Okay, so this is an issue with device ordering. Every time you place a device, it gets added to an order, and the way that the game works is it goes through devices in order and says, okay, you happen first, then you happen, then you happen. The reason we have no gas in this pipe is because this mixer here is happening before this filter here. And so this mixer puts gas into this pipe, and then this filter instantly pulls it back out. We don't want that, and so to fix it, we need to make sure that this mixer happens after this filter. So give me a second. And we should be able to just rip that out, and we'll throw it away. And to reset the device order, it needs to be placed back down somewhere where it's not going to harm anything. And then we'll need to build a new filter. This will put it last in the ordering. We should have enough steel for this. And then in this filter, oh no, that's a filter, not a, I'm gonna need more steel, aren't I? Not a filter, I need a mixer. But we can anchor this back down as well. Basically the way that you fix device ordering is by creating a bunch of devices and anchoring them somewhere to reset the order. We're gonna need some more steel. Give me a full stack. And we're going to need a mixer right here. So if we build this and we set it to do 10 on the side port on, hopefully this will work. Yep, now we got gas in here. So still warm because we've now pulled a bunch of oxygen out of here that's warming up, and so we'll have to wait for our freezers to go. Alright, we're a bit later now, and to go over settings that I found keeps things stable. This gas pump is set to 2000. This plasma gas pump is set to 130. I have this sensor, it's freaking out, set to 670 Kelvin, whereas this cooling sensor is set to 650. You can see that balances the temperature just around 7. Did that burn? Wow, it freaked out there. Okay, so it got really close to burning, but it didn't burn. And that makes it pretty stable. If you want to be slightly more stable, what you can do is take this sensor temperature threshold down to 650. And that makes it much less likely to burn, but doesn't mean you consume a little bit more oxygen. Down here at frezon, we've got this running. I turn this gas mixer off, but we turn that back on. We can see in this pipe we've got frezon mixing, which the temperatures are a bit off right now, but soon, once they drop down, there we go. We should see more frezon coming out of this pipe. So we're cooking a bunch of it. And you might be used to people talking about how you need to heat up your frezon. This is something we found out recently, which is why I'm doing this video in the first place of redesigning the refinery on the retort. You don't actually need to heat your frezon at all. You need to cool it. If you are efficient enough when you're creating frezon, then the temperature of your input gases, especially the oxygen since it's the main source, it being like above around 180 Kelvin is enough energy input into this system to keep it warm. So you don't need heating at all. It's just these 3 freezers. You don't need any heaters. You don't need any injection of hot water vapor or anything like that. This just works. And it's extremely efficient because it hovers around that 73 Kelvin mark the whole time. If you have a Hellfire freezer, you should use that because it can go slightly below 73 Kelvin, which will make it even like more consistent. You'll use slightly more oxygen and tritium per frezon you make, but it'll be running faster in general because you'll never accidentally go above 73.15 Kelvin. So we're producing a decent chunk of frezon. You can see it's going out into our storage tank out there. Is there anything else to go over? I don't think so. One downside is that you do have to listen to these air alarms beep all day. There's not really a lot you can do about that other than keep them far away from you so that when you're outside you don't have to hear them. Let's see. As you produce your frezon, you will create very cold nitrous oxide. And when that gets injected in here, it'll slowly cool down the temperature. That's good. It means you can store more gases in here over time. And it will also reduce your oxygen temperature, which will keep your frezon going a little bit happier. I don't think there's anything else to go over. This is it. So once again, I'm going to pause this and remove all the gas so that you can get one last screenshot of everything, as well as what's outside. Obviously, when you're actually running this, you wouldn't want to vent your entire storage, but it's for the video, so. Right. Okay, so since we stopped injecting cold or warm oxygen, this cools down pretty quickly. You can see what happens if you don't have the energy from the warm oxygen. Anyway, at this point I'm going to... Why is this continuing to open? I'll just turn this off. So we'll go over the scrubbers first. So this scrubber is linked to there. Scrubber. We'll do them one by one. So this one is linked to this scrubber here. It's set to pull everything but oxygen plasma out of that. And its sensors are set to have a temperature warning at 650 and a plasma warning at 1.5%. And it is linked to this scrubber, or this signal valve here. So this one linked to that. This one is just used to connect to the different scrubbers that we used in our gas holding chamber. Nothing else. Settings should just be all off. If we go through these, everything disabled, and that's just that it doesn't beep at us. Then we can... This one is only connected to this sensor right here. And it is looking for only temperature above 650, and it is connected to this signal valve right here. Outside we have our coolant loop. The more radiators you fit out here, the more tritium you can produce, but even just this much is plenty. Down here we have our oxygen going underneath. Actually, for this, let's go ahead and erase these freezers so you can see the pipes. So you have oxygen coming in here into this mixer, which the side port that has oxygen is 88%, while the other port has tritium. It is 11.11%. That's slightly confusing. Anyway, this mixer here is our nitrogen mixer, so it adds 10% nitrogen into the mixture that comes out of this mixer here. So we get a nice setup for frezon, and its inputs are connected straight to mining. That's because, as you can see, you don't actually use that much nitrogen at all when you're doing this. You do need a little bit, and so if you want slightly more storage, what you can do is you can have a canister. So if you just go over here and do a port. And connect to a storage canister. That acts as a pretty large buffer to hold nitrogen so that you never run out. The amount of nitrogen used when making tritium is very little, so you don't actually need that much. Then we have these 4 filters. We've got our nitrogen first going into the nitrogen mixer. We've got oxygen second going into the oxygen mixer. We've got tritium going into the tritium side of the mixer. And lastly, we've got frezon coming out here into our storage area, which you can put the storage area anywhere you want. I like putting it in the middle because it's very fancy. Then lastly, we just inject our nitrous oxide back into the air, which if you were doing something with the nitrous oxide, you can recycle nitrous oxide and carbon dioxide back into oxygen, which is good to do. I'll show that in a separate video, but in general, it's just good to keep a hold on to your nitrous oxide and carbon dioxide as just like a general rule. Up here, we have our burn chamber. Don't need either of these anymore. We have our burn chamber, and all that's doing is injecting oxygen into there and plasma into there while scrubbing trit out of there, and then making sure that the only thing that's in this pipe is tritium so that we're not injecting water vapor if we accidentally make it. We've got, connected to our externals. We've got our mining setup. Come on, flush. So we got our mining coming up here. See the pipe running. And then we're filtering it 7 times to get only the gases we want. You could technically do it the other way around, but where you only filter off like ammonia and the gases you don't want, which uses less filters, but people are used to this one, and it's kind of fun to have a big line of filters going down the side of your ship. And then anything we don't want ends up going down to, there's a pump right there, which leads to space, and so you just turn that pump on. And lastly, when it comes time to sell, you've got this pipe here, which will have your frezon going straight into your sale point here. If you want to sell your other gases, all you have to do is set up a scrubber in there, set it to scrub everything, and just connect it to that pipe there. So real easy. I rambled for like 10 minutes at the end of that, so I'm re-recording this. The other retort setup still works, and it's actually, I think, the cooler setup personally. I think using your frezon as heating and cooling is way more interesting than just storing it and selling it. But this new setup definitely way more efficient, so hopefully y'all enjoy it. Hopefully it's easy enough to build and follow along. Certainly less pipes than the other one. And have a nice time on the frontier. Find some good-ass gas.